finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
Oh, yes.
The sweet taste.
The sweet, sweet taste of another Doctales with cocktails. We have been deficient.
It's been a long time.
Yes.
And so well needed. I think probably not just our listeners' ears, but ours as well.
We have dealt with some pretty intense and heavy stuff, and warning kids, some more intense and heavy stuff coming in later episodes, but we thought we needed to pause because we've had enough sober topics that we need to have some non-sober topics. Non-sober topics. But first, we have a word.
Well, wait. My word is, what are we talking about today?
Oh, my. Yes, I can't forget. We're talking about ICD codes and the insanity surrounding them.
Not STD codes.
Well, there are STD codes inside ICD codes.
And if you don't know what an ICD code is,
you will.
Stick around.
And you will hate it as much as we do.
Exactly.
100%. But before we get to the insanity of ICD, a word from one of our Doctor Podcast Network partners, Erin Wiseman, with an amazing podcast.
Hey there, this is Dr. Erin Wiseman. I'm a fellow Doctor Podcast Network member, life coach, and Mama 3. I kick butt, I take names, and I help other high-achieving people do the exact same. And today, I want to invite you over to my podcast, Dr. Me First. It's well over 300 episodes, and each one is filled with inspiration and advice from amazing guests. So grab your wife, your mom, your sister, your best friend, and come tune in as we explore what it means to be a woman in medicine and a woman in this world. Because this podcast is a dose of everything that I needed when I was burned out, exhausted, and ready to quit it all. At the end of the day, I do this to help you feel more connected to yourself and to connect with others. I love to end my show with a kick of encouragement, so here's my favorite tagline. Your life, your calling, your pulse matters. See you over at Dr. Me First.
Thank you, Dr. Wiseman. All right, May. We're going to do this again. We've done this before, and it actually turned out way better than we thought. We call it batting practice. I really have zero idea what May's going to say. She's going to take the lead on this, and she's going to throw me some pitches, and we're going to see if I can hit him out of the park.
And I'm used to not knowing what Tim's going to say, so it usually turns out to be barely for all of us.
Make contact. Yeah, I've heard this before in both private and professional setting. I can't believe what just came out of your mouth.
Yep. Well, I'm speechless. But you're never speechless. So having said that, let's dive in, Tim.
ICD. Tell us, what is ICD? Where did it come from? I think, actually, the origin of ICD was from the pits of hell. There was like a seance that some guy had where he was possessed by like Beelzebub and came up with this coding idea of how we get paid. Oh, it's so great. It's awesome.
Yeah, and
so
originally, it wasn't all about how we get paid, but it was actually served a useful purpose. So, ICD is the International Classification of Diseases. It was originated as a method for keeping track globally as a tool for epidemiology, health management, clinical purposes, and it has origins actually back. How far back do you think this goes? Any guesses?
100 years.
Close, but longer. 1860. So the
100
historians say.
And 60 years.
Yeah, so back to 1860.
Yeah, but they're classifying diseases 160 years ago. It's like tractor fell on guy dead.
Yeah, so it starts with our favorite, Florence Nightingale, who made a proposal that was to basically result in a model of keeping data in hospital of what was going on. And then basically 30 years later, a French physician, Jacques Bertillon, started the Bertillon classification and cause of diseases. So really that's the origin of it. And that got introduced at the Congress in the International Statistical Institute in Chicago. So a number of countries around the world started to like adapt his system, and it was basically trying to distinguish general disease from particular organs, like is this disease coming from your heart or your lungs or different body parts, and classifying the cause of deaths and keeping track of things. And that was really the origin of things. And then
Was it called ICD then, or what was it called?
The Bertillon classification of causes of death. Yeah.
Okay, so it started with cause of death analysis, which actually, from an epidemiological perspective, is a gigantic deal because they're working backwards. They're like, died of pneumonia, died of whatever. Right. Is there something we can do about it ahead
and
of
guess how many classifications there were originally? So right now, if you're a physician listening, you're going to have a clue maybe as to how many there are currently with our current system. Guess how many they had. I mean, you could put it in your wallet, basically. There was 44 titles originally, and then it expanded to 161. So that was it. You had to know 44, originally 44 different things.
Could kill you.
Oh, I wish I could practice.
What is there now, 150,000? ICD-10, what is it?
70,000.
70,000 different codes.
Mm-hmm. That's not including procedure codes, which is separate, as well as hospital codes.
And or modifiers.
Correct.
So literally, there's infinity codes.
Yeah. So, back to history, which you love. So the U.S., Canada, Mexico adopted it, and it kept getting revised, and they made minor tweaks into the early 1900s when they got the sort of sixth revision of this classification system. Voila, basically was born the International Statistical Classification of Diseases, Injuries, and Causes of Death, which we now know as the ICD codes. So before the sixth revision, back in what I'm finding is like the early 1900s, it was organized by these different commissions and groups, international statistic. I can't say the word statistical institute
because
and the health
you're hammered.
No, I'm not. I haven't even gotten to my beverage yet. But guess who?
Do you know who says that? Alcoholics say that.
Stop.
Denial is not just a river in Egypt.
It's 2:00 in the afternoon, for goodness sake. I guess that doesn't stop
anybody.
Can't
stop. You can't drink all day unless you start in the morning.
I can't say the word statistical. It's the way my teeth, with my beautiful new teeth job from my braces 5 years ago, my tongue go. And I have a stupid canker sore on my tongue right now, go figure, that is making it impossible to say certain words. So
well, I have one too. So are you like some viral tongue infector? I
am. There's a bunch of that going around. I think COVID's caused all these weird infections. Anyway.
COVID tongue.
So sorry for the teeth and the canker sore making me slur my... 1948, guess who assumed responsibility for the ICD-10? Who owns it? Who runs it?
Satan.
Yeah, WHO. So there you go. And the ICD-10 or ICD, we're at 10 now, is currently the most widely used statistical classification system for diseases. I can't say S is very good. Around the world. For many countries,
admitting you have a problem is the first step.
And so countries all over the world use it. A lot of them modify it to their own purposes, and they have their own variations. Like Canada has its own little tweaks. So ICD.ca.
Holy shit, he's drunk, eh? That would be a code in Canada. Like, oh man, he had way too many beers, and now he's wasted.
So where we're at now is... for people who are not in the medical field, these codes, like we said, they help write down what kind of a disease, what kind of signs and symptoms you might come in complaining about, abnormal findings, complaints, and of course our favorite when we look these up and mock is social circumstances to which the incident or the injury would have occurred, external causes of injury or disease. We put all that in there. And currently we're on our 10th modification rendition, which actually, I guess they began working on this back in 83, according to our Wikipedia.
ICD-9 goes back to when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Or before, probably when we were in utero. So we got to do a little framework.
ICD 9, yeah, they were working on that in 1975.
Yeah, I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the deal. Why do we get so salty about ICD codes? The reason is when you work in the healthcare industry, you don't get paid unless you have a diagnosis. In other words, you can't put down on the chart, did some stuff to some guy, pay me. You have to say what it was that you were treating. So it's super critical. It is an absolute hard stop in all electronic medical records. It's a hard stop in any collections, which makes sense, right? If the insurance company is going to pay you for a service you rendered, it should be, patient had pneumonia. The diagnosis is pneumonia. Here's the charge I'm submitting. Pay me the charge, right? Sounds amazing, right? Until what ended up happening, especially with ICD-10, is the insurance companies and the federal government, what really honestly gets them the most excited is data harvesting. These guys are data harvesting whores. They love it. And so ICD-10 went from, ICD-9 was like 10,000 diagnoses. It went to like 70,000. And then there's what are called modifiers. So you can add a modifier to it, which makes it almost like the combinations are almost limitless. Like this is like a 50,000 colored Rubik's Cube.
Right.
All right.
Right. So it serves a purpose. It's kind of cool how it's organized if you don't really understand it. But yes, if you don't fill in the codes correctly, when you submit it to insurance, they are super sticky and then they're not going to pay you properly.
And the more specific the code is, the better the reimbursement. So,
Yes.
for instance, if you have a patient that comes in and they're a diabetic, right? If you just write down diabetes, you're going to get the lowest amount of reimbursement you can. If they have the complications associated with diabetes, so they have renal disease or eye disease or peripheral neuropathy or whatever the case may be, and you add all those modifying diagnoses to the original diagnosis of diabetes, then you can recoup more money, okay? So you start chasing money. Now, it starts to get completely insane because we work in acute care right now. So you see somebody with a cut on their finger, and you just want to go, laceration finger. Okay, well, the computer starts bringing up all these prompts because they don't want laceration finger. They want left finger, right finger, index finger, middle finger. And, of course, by this point, I'm giving the middle finger to it.
And then
Initial, subsequent, depth, length, et cetera, et cetera. It is like this. It's like this, okay? It gets so frustrating. It's like this. It's like a guy comes into your ER. He was, a 12-year-old kid was running along a fence, and he slipped, and the fence, penetrated his bottom. And he comes into the ER, and you're going to code that. And this is what it feels like to a doctor. It's like anal penetration by fence. Seems pretty specific. And then it's like, well, was it a picket fence or was it a non-picket fence? Was it made of alder?
No, back it up. It's not even, you can't even put anal penetration by fence. It's like, well, is it anal? Is it perianal? Is it rectum?
Right.
Anal and rectum? You have to get very specific and
right.
complex.
And then it's like, okay,
and then they want to know is it superficial? Is it subcutaneous? Is
right.
it to the muscle? You're right.
Before the anal penetration, did the fence buy the person a drink? Is the fence painted with lead that was painted before the 1950s? Is the said penetrating fence made of alder or fir wood?
You're getting the gist of it.
That's exactly what it's like. And you're sitting there, and it's like, I just want to, and the guy is literally on a stretcher going, take the fence out of my ass!
I know.
And you're like, I can't, sir, because I need to know what kind of paint was on the fence.
It's not that. You're trying to order his morphine, and you can't because you have to attach a diagnosis to it. So literally, you know what it's like. You're in the room, and you're trying to get someone's acute meds. And literally, it's like you have to have a diagnosis code in there before you can order it because, well, at least where we work, verbal orders are working.
That's where everyone works. It's like, give this
like,
kid some morphine. He has a fence in his ass.
But I need to know the exact ICD-10 code before I can do that, doctor. Yeah, and you're just sitting there ready to throw the computer up someone's.
Well, then you just pick whatever diagnosis you want.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, he's got depression. He needs morphine.
So these codes actually obviously this expanded, and you can imagine with COVID happening, it's going to be modified. They're adding a bunch more because of COVID and hospitalizations, etc. And we're not getting into procedure codes or hospital codes, but the ICD-10 has got chapters. I mean, it's kind of important to just throw this out there before we get into the crazy ones. So I should say chapters. How they classify them, they're alphabetical from A to Z. You knew that, right? And what they do is they give them like blocks, A to B, like A00 to B99 is all about infectious and parasitic diseases. And then codes that start with C through D are neoplasms, D through E are blood diseases. The list goes on. It mostly is by systems. And then you get towards the end of the alphabet, and then R codes are more about signs and symptoms, abnormal labs, like, you wrote abnormal EKG as a code. It would be an R code, or abnormal CBC. And then the V codes are the fun ones because they're causes of morbidity or mortality. So those are the how did they get injured or causes of death.
So the V codes are like injured in launch of space vehicle.
Yeah.
That is a legit code.
Pecked to deck, pecked by chicken. So V codes are usually, they're called modifiers. You can't just write in a V code and get paid for it. You can't just say they got pecked by a chicken. You have to give an actual, why they're here and what's the injury. So a V code gets added on, and so does a Z or Z code for you guys up in Canada. Z codes are factors that influence health status and contact with health service. So if there's familial strife and things like that, that's a Z code. A Z code.
So you could put a Z code on something where child was running away from abusive parent, slipped and fell, and was penetrated anally by picket fence.
Okay, can we pick another body part?
With lead paint that was painted before 1957.
Oh my god! Yeah. So, believe it or not, that's what we're using here, and that's kind of where we're at. I didn't know that there are over 38,000 procedure codes. It's crazy. Anyway, so this is the bane of our existence at work, trying to get this correct. And there's so many times where the other day, if you get injured, a needle stick injury, and I've been seeing a few of those lately, and you come in, you can't just type in needle stick injury, doesn't exist. So then you got to remember, and you got to get creative. It's
I did it yesterday. I did needle stick injury yesterday. I tried to type in needle stick, okay?
Yeah.
And it came up with penetration of non-specific body part by inanimate. I mean, it was like it interpreted it as something that never existed.
So then you get creative. It's just like, I know what it is now. I think it's exposure to bloodborne pathogens, but or high risk for, STI exposure or other exposure, but you can't just say needle stick injury. You'd have to say puncture wound to finger and exposure to bloodborne. But that's not the way our brain even thinks. You're thinking, yeah, it's a needle stick injury. Let me type that in. No, doesn't exist. Sorry, can't help you. Go away.
Right, but injury in launch of space vehicle.
We're getting to those.
Actually exists.
We're getting to those.
No, I know we're getting there, but again, this is batting practice. I have no idea what you're going to say, so I'm ad-libbing. It's called improv.
Well, what do you think? So I looked this up because my daughter actually was a certified medical coder. I wish I had her book in front of me. But what do you think if you looked out? We used to look them up alphabetically instead of by numbers. You could look up A to Z, the codes. What do you think is the top of the list as far as starting off with, if it was an A, a diagnosis starting with the letter A?
Anal penetration by picket fence post.
N is further down the alphabet, my dear. Like abdomen even comes ahead of anal. Think of it, A, B.
Well, in your alphabet it does.
Any thoughts? You're never going to get this.
So it'd be like
close. Exactly.
Abacus. You were assaulted. Assault with abacus. Abacus assault.
Pretty much. It is actually, I'd never heard of this, but that's how it's getting to be with a lot of things these days as I get older. Ayre-Skog syndrome. Do you know what that is? So it's AARSKOGS. Actually, it's a syndrome commonly used in hospitals. It's a condition usually it's a congenital malformation. There's usually always short stature, and then they have other physical abnormalities as well.
If one of them is a giant head, I might have that.
So that, I was like, oh, interesting. Didn't know that. And the last one on the list with the letter Z as far as diagnosis is really bizarre. You're never going to get it. Any guesses? Z, like...
So it's like something that starts with ZZ something.
There's no such words.
Well, so it was
back up the alphabet, though.
It was like ZZ Top concert.
No, I thought it was zombie. It used to be zombies or zombie-like disorder. It was a psychiatric thing, but it's actually zymotic, which is a 19th century term for acute infectious diseases. Zymotic is from the Greek word meaning to ferment. So they used to, you can still find that on the ICD list. Weird.
So ZY.
ZY, yeah.
So zymotic, is that like the guys that get that, what do they call that brewer's abdomen? Where they have the certain lactobacillus or whatever it is in their gut? No, it's not one
specific
where
thing.
They eat a bunch of bread and then they just make beer in their gut?
It goes back to when they used to think that most infectious diseases were related to fermenting problems in the body and associated with contact with things. And, yeah, we were fermenting toxins in our body.
So what you're telling me is there's a code for burning up in a space vehicle, and there's still a code that goes back way before germ theory.
Correct.
So is there one like humor's too much phlegm humor?
Oh.
Too much, like, ill humors. He's very colic. He needs to be debiled, and nothing will help this more like a good leeching.
Well, you can pick these ones apart because there's nothing more fun than when you're really bored at work to look up crazy ICD-10 codes. You can look them up on the internet. There's all kinds of websites that have published, and people publish there's different articles on these, and you'll get a grab bag. But there's a common few that keep popping up. And then I've collected a few others. Man, I was trying to make a top 10, but I don't even know that I could do a top 10 because there's so many. So I'm going to throw out some really good ones at you, see what you think. And we'll keep going till we run out of time or cocktails here. So,
we never run out of cocktail.
Okay, so here we go. Some of these are going to be ones you've heard before, and then the ones you haven't, I'm going to love it. But V code 95.43, spacecraft collision injuring occupant. So I'm thinking, obviously, clearly as we get into this space race and the space realm, and with the launch to the moon and everything going on, we're certainly creating more spacecraft injuries. But then I read this and I was like, is this a spacecraft? Is this like you can actually have a drone? I mean, would that qualify if I saw somebody that had a drone hit them? It has to be occupant. It has to be occupant. But they're actually, so it gets crazy because there's spacecraft collision and injuring occupant, spacecraft collision hitting pedestrian. I mean, there's all kinds of spacecraft injuries out there. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you landed the shuttle improperly and you got injured. Crazy.
And exactly how many people have landed in the shuttle?
So
like
if you're taking
80?
If you're taking the shuttle, buckle up, friends.
But I just want my needle stick injury to be on there.
Here's a good one. Z code. These are the V and Z codes are the best. Problems with the in-laws. I kid you not. As I like to say, because I'm from Canada, I shit you not. Problems with you can put that down. Problems with the in-laws.
But that's
doesn't everybody have?
So that's a modifier, though. So they need to have a primary diagnosis, correct? And then you add the modifier.
Right. So if you came in and you were like having insomnia or a panic attack or inebriated, you could blame it on the in-laws, and it would insurance.
So you could have like alcohol poisoning with the problems with the in-law modifier.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, what is the point of putting that on there? I really don't know. You can put it in the note, but how does that change the insurance billing process? Beats me. Here's one. It's a Y code. Injured in an opera house. Can you even imagine? So all these codes, I want people to know that the reason these codes exist is because these things actually happened. It's not just, oh, well, what if this happened? Or this is a potential. These get created because there's enough demand, because there's enough occurrences, and they actually start to add it to the list. So
is there spaceships we don't know about? I mean, like that. like there's enough occurrences that it matters. Like, so injured in an opera house. So what is that? Like that's the Abraham Lincoln
Yeah.
code
I don't
because
know,
he was shot in a theater.
Maybe
like
you poked your eye with a spectacle and you have a corneal abrasion from an injury at the opera house.
or maybe I needed
or you fell off the
dialysis
stage.
from alcohol poisoning because I needed to like make the pain go away.
Or you ruptured your vocal cord. Who knows? Very interesting. Okay, this one I love. It pops up everywhere. And this is burn due to water skis on fire initial encounter. So I'm thinking, how do your water skis catch on fire? We're water skiers. Any ideas, Tim? You're like
Absolutely none.
you're speechless.
None. No, like I literally am like burn due to water skis on fire. Like that's a famous one. Actually, Rand Paul quoted that one
I'm thinking
when ICD-10 was coming out.
You're going real fast, faster than the speed of sound.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's up there with the very unfortunate goaltender for the Columbus Blue Jackets that passed away a couple days ago.
That's not even funny anymore.
No, it's not. But literally, if you coded it, it would be, death by firework in hot tub.
That's probably going to be added to the list now.
Well, I'm sure it will be added to the list. Burn from water ski. Okay, so okay, let's back this up. We assume
maybe he was carrying a torch on the 4th of July.
No, he wasn't. We assume. Let's go back
the
to the water
skier. The water skier.
No. We assume they're water skiing. It doesn't say that. It says burn from water skis on fire. So what if their water skis were stored in a shed with fuel for the boat, and then all of that caught on fire, and the thing that tipped over that was on fire that actually burned the patient were the water skis? It doesn't say burned with water skis on fire whilst water skiing in water. That would put out the fire!
Well, I haven't seen burn from... There's probably burn from curling iron. I haven't found that one yet.
I hope to God there is, because that doesn't happen ever.
Burn from a cigarette while smoking with my oxygen in my nose. That one happens all the time. I guess.
Oh, man.
Okay.
One of my friends used to deliver oxygen, and he would go... He would go into these...
I had a patient that did that. I went into her house, and
Yeah.
she caught her nasal hairs on fire.
No. He would go into these houses, and he would say, they have nasal cannula on 100% of the time. You're not smoking. And they're like, no, absolutely. I swear to you, I'm not smoking. And he looks at them, and the nasal cannula and under their nose is all black.
Yeah, I know. It's just singed. I
It's
just
just
love it. It's like a little
absolutely
ashtray
singed.
on their philtrum, their upper lip.
Yeah, like, is there one that's burnt philtrum from smoking whilst on oxygen? That would be a good one.
I haven't found that one yet, but here's one that we make fun of all the time. It's a V code. Sucked into jet engine, subsequent encounter. Okay, so you've been sucked into a jet engine. You have been fortunate to have made it because you're, I don't know, Iron Man. And now you're coming back for a subsequent visit to the doctor's office. I would say you're a superhero. And this is just like, you read it at first and you just laugh, but then like, this is freaky because this happened. So like, was it a wing walker? I guess not on a jet engine. Was it a military accident gone bad? Like, how the heck do you get sucked into a jet engine and have a subsequent encounter?
Yeah, in civil aviation, it would be pretty hard because that stuff is. I mean, but the only one I've ever seen.
I'm thinking the chance that you get a subsequent encounter. That's probably
I would think that's low. That's like sucked into wood chipper. Subsequent encounter.
Exactly.
And so it's just like, what is it? Like they just bring out hamburger patties and there's the subsequent encounter. Well, there was that guy, though, that was on it, and it actually makes sense. He was on an aircraft carrier. He was a crew member on an aircraft carrier, and they had a jet with, like, lower engine pods or whatever it was. And he got sucked into it and spit out the back and apparently survived. How you can go through all of the the turbines spinning.
No kidding. That's insane.
And like it doesn't make sense.
Well, there's a whole classification of different what would I call injuries like that, like spacecraft, airplane craft. that you can find. So, let's see. I was trying to look for another one. Here we go. What about? Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead from the aircraft type accidents because there's all kinds. Listen to this one, Tim.
Okay.
This one I actually have used. It would be R46.1. Do you have that one memorized yet? There's two R codes, R46 and R46.1. They kind of go together. Any ideas?
46.
R46, you don't remember that? R46, very low level of personal hygiene.
Oh.
So,
wow.
Where we have worked in the past,
yeah,
I would get to use that one quite frequently. And actually,
hang on, like, time out. So that's an R code.
Yeah.
So is that a modifier or is that like a legit code? Like somebody comes in and they just smell like ass?
No, there's one for that too, but I think the R codes are modifiers.
So
46.1, I have used this one. Bizarre personal appearance. Now,
okay, but you're judging.
That's based on
you shall not judge my personal
based on
appearance.
Judgment, isn't it? But there has been some very interesting folk we have seen over the past 30 years, and I don't know that I've used that one. I've definitely used the 46.0 lots of times.
I've never used that.
You haven't?
No, that's great. So they come in with like.
So the lady that had the poo rolling down her leg that hit the carpet, you could have used low level of hygiene. Yes.
No.
And the guy that I had that had the dog poop in the arches of his shoes that we could smell throughout the whole building for 6 hours after that.
I would have used the lowest level
of
hygiene.
Yeah, well. So, yes, I've used it. I'm like, what
that's
the heck?
R46.2, the lowest level of hygiene.
You can get a code for all kinds of incidents at home. Get this. Y code. Injured while knitting or crocheting. I'm assuming, I don't know, was that like a stab wound? I did see a woman injured while sewing. She inserted the sewing needle. It was like this 4-inch long darning needle into her thigh where it migrated and we could not get it out.
But that actually makes sense.
Down
okay?
to
So, like when I go to biker rallies, all right, they have these team of people that man these industrial sewing machines so that they can sew patches on leather jackets, right?
Yeah, but crocheting or knitting, like
no,
what?
I know.
And
I asked this woman,
would you
right?
have a sword fight?
So she's in Sturgis for like 2 weeks, right? Making bank. But you got to sew a ton of stuff an hour. And I'm like, how many times have you sewn your hand to the sewing, like to somebody's leather jacket? And she's like, this week.
Oh my gosh. Actually,
I mean,
no.
not quite, but pretty close.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like,
now that I think of it, I did see somebody that worked in a leather. She did that hand customed leather stuff for bikes, and she did have She had a carpal tunnel, but she didn't have an actual, puncture wound. Oh wait, no, I did see one of those too. Yeah, I mean, we've seen all kinds of crazy stuff.
When you watch somebody sew an 8-inch by 12-inch, emblem on the back of a leather jacket, in 22 seconds,
you're gonna have to draw blood at some point in your career.
You get a new appreciation for high risk work environment. Like, it is absolutely staggering to watch these people work. And their hands are like leather. Well, geez, I wonder why.
Well, let me throw a few more at you before we break for our cocktail endorsement here. Sound good? Okay, other than the other stuff, injuries at home, how about injury due to activity, laundry? Like, that's a Y code, Y93.E2. Look it up. Like what? So I'm going to guess, what would you do if you were injured due to activity laundry? Back strain.
Sure. You pick up the laundry basket.
But who cares?
And you get back pain.
I'm just like, who cares that it was picking up a laundry basket? Why does the government, why does the insurance company need to know it was picking up a laundry basket? As long as it's not an on-the-job injury.
Do you know why?
What if it was picking up your cat toy off the floor? I have never seen injury due to cat toy or cat vomit.
Because it's a laundry basket filled with COVID.
Or Elmo's little friend music player that you stepped on with your foot. And I mean, come on.
Oh, like that time that we were in Seattle and I was running the marathon and our daughter was sleeping in the bassinet in the hotel.
Yes.
And I stepped on her little
that
Fisher-Price Sesame Street
Elmo's CD player thing.
country.
Yeah. Your foot didn't get too injured, but I thought the wall would when that thing went flying.
Yes, that would have been, the modifier would have been super pissed off in the middle of the night guy.
Exactly. Here's a couple other good ones. We talked about the opera house. How about the library is the place of occurrence of the external cause? You get injured at the library from that big paper cut or eye strain or dry. I don't know. What would you have? What could you have happen at the library?
Well, what if you were getting a book off the top shelf?
And the shelf fell on you? Or
And the shelf fell on you, or you fell off the book ladder?
Well, this, I think...
Or you found the super hot librarian.
Oh, gosh.
And you got an STD in the library.
Or peyronie's.
Or you had, yes.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's right.
Permanent peyronie's.
The Dewey Decimal Hookup System.
Oh, my gosh. Let's move on.
Call now.
Let's move on to
1-900 Dewey Decimal.
Okay, here's a couple more. Legal intervention involving bayonet. Unspecified person injured. Subsequent encounter. A bayonet. So
what? Like, there's police forces that use bayonets now? It's like, the rubber bullets and the tear gas aren't enough. And you know what? We're out of bullets, so we're just going to stab those bastards.
Still a weapon of choice somewhere. How about you can apparently get pretty injured at your massage therapist too, because there's an L code called L89.306. Pressure-induced deep tissue damage of unspecified buttock. Now, it's probably from sitting on your ass too long with all the work from home, Zoom meeting bullshit we do, or maybe you're a writer, but I'm like, maybe someone actually gave you such a deep tissue massage. They caused some rhabdomyolysis or something. It doesn't really say deep tissue damage of unspecified buttock. And then, but if you want to specify the buttock, I'm sure they would be.
Oh no, they'll let you. Oh no, they won't let you. Like, unspecified codes now are virtually gone. The computer won't let you move on. It's like, was it the right buttock? Was it the left?
Okay.
Was it at the 12 o'clock position or the 9 o'clock position?
And the last...
Was it perianal?
The last one I'm cutting you off. The last one in the...
You've been cutting me off for 29 years.
Yeah, I think he says that every time we come on this, Doctales.
Well, don't open the door. I won't walk through it.
Well, I'm going to find a code for you pretty soon and throw it out there.
Drunken dickhead.
No, I think there's a Lorena Bobbitt one in here pretty soon. Prolonged stay in a weightless environment. Would you like to have that code?
That would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, seriously.
And again, how many people in the entire world have had that? 200?
Exactly. But it gets added to the list. More crap for us to sift through and clog up our EMRs when we're trying to do our job.
I had one where the coder came back to me and she thought it was really cool and she wanted to know what was true. And I added, I clicked on the wrong whatever, and it was some asthma code, and it was asthma induced by volcanic fog.
Oh, no way. You picked that by accident?
Yes.
So that's what I hate about the computer.
Right.
The mouse gets out of control and it rolls. You click on something and it scrolls down to the next thing. And next thing you know, you're like, what the hell did I just create?
No, right. Then you are impaled with a picket fence.
And it depends on your EMR system, because ours is very archaic. I won't say what it is, but it's total crap. And I'm every time somebody gets a finger injury or laceration, it certainly wants to cause a nail injury in there, and it just drives me. Well,
it wants a nail injury and it wants a foreign body,
yeah,
and it literally is it's entirely unhappy if it doesn't get those things. And it literally, I wonder if there's a code for physician suicide induced by ICD-10.
I think there will be soon, sadly enough. Well, on that note, let's share what we're drinking.
We are drinking French vodka. You thought it was just wine and absinthe? No. Ciroc, C-I-R-O-C, is very interesting because what makes vodkas different, other than how many times they distill and filter it, which is really the primary difference, is the base sugar. So Tito's, which has become very popular in the United States, is corn. Even most high-end vodkas, believe it or not, are grains. There are obviously potato vodkas, which is what started
That's
this all.
where my juju is.
That's her juju. But May, pray tell, Ciroc, what base sugar do they use?
Well, if it's from France, I'm sure our listeners can take a
They
very
lose.
educated
If that's the
guess.
case, they use the tears of losing armies.
Oh.
No, they use French's favorite thing other than Michelin tires, which
No.
is grapes.
Yeah, it's special. It's definitely, if you're a wine connoisseur, I mean, when you pour this, it has some nice legs to this vodka because it's thicker. We're drinking mango today. I have never tasted mango before. There's all kinds of flavors. The mango is really good because I like nectarine, mango. I like citrusy flavors. Lime, give me anything lime and I'm there. But this one, it's really great for summer, and we've added some lemonade to it to give it a nice.
That's actually a
kick.
winner.
Yes.
This stuff's not cheap because it's grape based vodka, for heaven's sake. So you're spending a lot of money on the base sugar. It's really good. I think.
Yeah, if you're out there for a party on the weekend and you're mixing your drinks and chugging it, I mean, just go straight for the cheap stuff. But at least I, like to sip and enjoy the flavors and I'm a vodka snob, if you haven't figured that out yet. And so I really like to enjoy the flavors of the different types of vodka, mostly potato, but Crater Lake's another one. But this Ciroc I love because I love wine, and this mango flavor is really good.
We haven't done it yet. We were going to do it, and then we got sidetracked with other more pertinent podcasts. An absolute blind taste test with May. I'm kind of, I don't know if she can tell the difference, so we'll find out in a podcast where we do it live. Unfortunately,
maybe that would be a
I
good
drink it all before we can do the taste test. So you can definitely tell the difference between complete gasoline vodka. I'll be interested if you could take a high-end wheat and a reasonably high-end potato and tell the difference between that and a grape vodka.
I'm excited to give it a try.
Yes.
So maybe on our next episode we can do that.
So you buy it and hide it, and then we'll do that.
Put it under lock and key. So.
All right, back to ICD.
Oh, but
Insanity.
Ciroc, if you'd like to sponsor us, or anybody listening that knows anybody in Ciroc, please, we would love it. We're begging for sponsors, in addition to Aaron. All righty, let's get back to the toasting fun with our stupid
ICD Insanity.
All right. I'm going to throw out a few other crazies that I found. Okay, there's so many. I started reading these pages after pages. I'm like, holy shit. Is this for real? Some of these make sense, and some of them are just stupid, and some I get where they came from, but R14.3. I'm going to code you with this every morning or every afternoon. So the way they wrote this down, it says R14.3 is, so an R code is related to, I think, abdominal problems. So
massive morning erection.
No, abdominal problems, not genitourinary. This is flatulence. But somehow it says flatulence causing injury. I think someone cheated. I don't know.
Flatulence causing injury? So is it flatulence causing injury to the patient that has the flatulence, or are they causing injury to another person with their flatulence?
Total truth.
That would be awesome.
I was Googling and looking up fast ways to print out all these, and so people had compiled these, and they said R14.3, flatulence causing injury, and I'm like, no flipping way. Causing injury. So I looked it up, and it's R14.3 is flatulence, period. There's nothing about causing injury. I think 14.1 is burping, 14.2 is gas bloating, and 14.3 is flatulence.
So it kind of it moves through the entire GI tract
yeah.
as the numbers go higher.
Yeah.
You don't want
a G code. Now,
you don't want the
can you
14
imagine?
point. You don't want the 14 point 10, because that's when you shit your pants.
Have you ever entered a G? Okay, this is extra explicit if kids are listening. But have you, if you can imagine a G code, the G area.
Oh, baby, I want to find your G code.
Well, here's one. Headache associated with sexual activity.
That's actually not that uncommon.
No, I know, but you can code for it. Yeah. G code. Look it up. 4482. Now.
So would that count if, like, you come up to your wife and she's not in the mood and she grabs you by the shoulders and pounds you into the wall, get away from me, and then you get a headache? Would that be associated with sexual activity, or would that be associated with, like, maybe there's a V code for that, associated with attempted sexual activity?
That sounds like more like
Attempt
abuse.
rebuffed.
That goes in the abuse section.
Okay.
Or problem with the not in law.
Because there's the what is it, the orgasmic headache code.
I didn't look that up, but I thought this was pretty close. Oh boy, there's animal encounters. Where do we begin? Let's start with, if it's happened, it's here. Bitten by orca, initial encounter. There are 36 ICD-10 codes dealing with injuries from marine mammals, as opposed to just 18 for injuries caused by sharks and other fish. These cute dolphins, seals, and whales are apparently hiding plenty of hospitals and doctors' offices, or hiding in there, causing injuries. So, I mean...
Okay, whoa. Time out. So if it's bitten by orca, there should not be a subsequent encounter. It should be nibbled by orca.
Yeah, right.
Because if you're legit bitten by an orca, you're just dead. They're not called negotiation whales. They're called killer whales.
Yep. Well, bitten by orca. I guess it was a love bite. And
nibbled by orca.
Contact with pig, but it's not. It's other contact with pig. So I want to know. So there's bite by a pig, kicked by a pig. But what's other? Like, don't even say it, but it kind of makes you go, Just as we have other contact with a cow.
Bite by pig with headache of,
Yeah, so there's, bit by cow, struck by a cow, and other contact with a cow. Very bizarre. I have nothing to say with some of these animal things. There's turtle. There is...
No, they're vicious. Snapping turtle they will screw your hands up if they bite you.
We have a W code of being pecked by a chicken. We have struck by a sea lion. Other contact with dolphin. And injured in a chicken coop. Struck by a raccoon. Struck by a sea lion. It goes on and on and on.
Like, how do you get struck by a raccoon? We've had like a ton of raccoons in our backyard. And they're really happy when they're using their little hands to eat your cat food. And then you get the broom out to shoo them away, and they just, like, they're instant Wolverine.
Well, they're nasty.
Satan, whatever. But how does it strike you? Like, did you fall out? Like, did you pass out on your back deck? And it comes up, and it takes its little raccoon hand, and it's, like, feeding itself with its little hand. And they also masturbate, by the way. That's just a side note. And it's eating itself, or it's feeding itself with its little raccoon hand, and it sees there's a passed-out human, and they just bitch slap you. Is that struck by a raccoon?
I don't know.
You got a little tiny hand print of a raccoon hand on your cheek because they're like, and it makes that sound.
All I'm thinking of is the time that there was one in our backyard, and I was poking it with a broom, and it wouldn't go away. So I took out the mace. It was a dark, foggy Oregon night, and I sprayed the pepper spray, and it wouldn't budge. So what did I do? I walked through the pepper spray trail.
No.
And then I would have had corneal abrasion and conjunctivitis secondary to raccoon in contact.
No. Well, we won't get into that. But there's things you poke them with, and usually they're lead-shaped and high velocity if you want them out of your yard.
There's some fun ones in here, which makes me think back to when our kids are little, like Heelys accident roller shoes. Heelys, they were dangerous. Explosion of bicycle tire, initial encounter. Walked into wall, initial encounter. I mean, people have done it.
So is there a V code modifier that's like drunk on your ass? So then, like, walked into the wall, that's the code, and then modifier is drunk on their ass.
Yeah, there's a bunch of intoxication codes. I've seen them before because we were looking at them at work one day when we were bored. And
pregnant And then the intoxication code.
There's a bunch of ones for intoxication, fall down.
Pregnancy, unintentional intoxication code.
Yes. I mean, I didn't bring up any of those or the mental health ones. I mean, I don't think those are fun.
No,
I don't think it's appropriate
no.
to make fun of those.
It's entirely inappropriate. I mean, to make fun of, when you can make fun of space vehicles, why would you go so low to try to poke fun at mental health codes?
I mean, as far as that goes, though, here's one. It was swimming pool of prison as the place of occurrence of an injury.
Isn't that in the shower at the prison where the injury usually happens?
I guess in prison you get to go hang out at the local pool. I'm like,
no,
wow.
that's a Canadian code. It's a Canadian prison. Okay, yeah, like I know I'm in here for like 3 life sentences because I killed a family because I got wasted on a bat say. So let's go down to the pool. Like if you can get some of the shea butter on my back, it's getting a little chapped, and we'll do a little swimming because
So we're gonna wrap this up with just a few more bizarre things. I can't even think. Maybe you guys out there can figure out where these are coming from. Okay, well, first off, before I get into that, Tim's favorite, it's the insect bite of anus initial encounter. That exists. But it doesn't say
but the
intentional
subsequent encounter is way worse. It's when that thing starts to like... can you imagine, though, like if you got implanted with some sort of insect larva from the initial encounter?
Stop.
And then it would be like bugs out of ass. Subsequent encounter, because like you were literally invaded by some sort of larva. Larval butthole. Subsequent encounter.
Oh my gosh. Insect bite on your... Oh my, that's sad.
So how do you do that, though? Like, literally, how do you do that? Like
I don't know. Maybe you bent over and a hornet got you by accident.
Yeah, but that's a tenacious hornet. It's like literally...
Now, we've looked this up because there are those stupid things where, you look up insect bites, and you've done it before. You look up yellow jacket, because it's like people come in all the time with these yellow jacket or bee stings or hornet stings. It's you go to type in bee sting. It's like, is it intentional, accidental? Is it what? There's a whole bunch of different.
There's an unintentional bee sting. Like the bee's like, I didn't really plan on stinging them, but the hive's been kind of, the queen's been kind of bitchy, so I kind of lost myself and decided that maybe I should sting some people.
No, but that's accidental, right? You get stung by a bee, that's accidental bee sting, but intentional self-harm. So
I guess people run naked into beehives.
They do. I looked it up. Like one time we were watching I don't know. We were watching YouTube and people actually do that. There's these stupid videos where people will stick their hand into like a box and they'll get one of those. This is one of the most poisonous whatever from Africa. Let's see what the reaction is. And the guy gets bit and then he goes unconscious and they have to give him an EpiPen.
Okay, so the intentionality is on the human, not on the bee.
Yes.
So then he needs the V code modifier of dumbass.
Yeah. Well, there's probably that.
There needs to be a dumbass modifier.
Exactly. So here's some stuff that I can't make sense of as we wrap this up. Like sibling rivalry. I guess if you're at psychiatry and you're being counseled and there's shit going on and you're blaming it on when your brother and sister used to torture you, pretend they were dead, and lay there while you cried for 30 minutes till your parents came home. That was mental anguish, sibling, I don't know. It's a Z code. Sibling rivalry, I guess just like in-laws. Accidental twist by another person. What the heck is that? Is that like you're playing, what's that game where you twist people's forearms and give them like can you remember what the name of that is when you're like a snake bite? Is that an accidental twist?
Or what if you're playing Twister?
Twister. Activity, ironing. I mean, it just, of course, there's unspecified balloon injury accident, things like this. Now,
I'm way more into the specified balloon injuries. And is it a hot air balloon or is it like, I mean, we had that guy, remember when we were in Edmonton and that guy died from taking a hit of helium off the tank?
Oh, yeah.
So they thought that they, because you can inhale the helium out of the balloon and talk funny, he thought, well, I'll take the hit off the high pressure tank. And he got like some massive helium embolism from this super mega injected lighter than air gas. And I'm like, oh,
there will be a code for that.
Yeah, that's bad though. You don't want a comedy code on your death certificate. That's like really, really bad. Killed by clown.
Here we go. Superficial bite of other specified part of neck. Initial encounter. Sounds like a hickey.
Is that like a vampire?
Sounds like a hickey to me. Hit by a canoe. I mean, it just goes on and on. If you really
Hit
bored,
by a canoe that was on fire from flaming water skis. But we almost hit a canoe. We had an episode where we had literally the most Canadian experience you can possibly have in the history of Canadian experiences. Like, other than being chewed to death by a beaver with a Canadian flag in its hand, we are driving down, what was that, the 401, which is the busiest highway in the entire country. It's between it goes between St. Catharines, like Niagara Falls, and Toronto. And it's foggy, and May's friend picked us up from the airport, and we're driving along. And it is kind of this foggy mist, and everyone's going like 75 miles an hour. And I'm in the back seat, and they're chit-chatty,
you tell the story
up.
wrong.
And I look out the front window,
We all looked.
and I scream,
We all screamed.
canoe!
We all screamed
Because
canoe.
there is a canoe in the middle of the 401 that we are going to hit. So she pulls over, manages to not hit the canoe. I look back. There's a semi behind us that literally just eats this thing. Like, it was delicious.
Before it ate it, what did she say?
We pulled over, and she goes, maybe we can go back and get that. It still might be good.
It's Canadian.
And I'm like, you're going to die.
It's Canadians. Let's go salvage a canoe.
Let's go get the cheap canoe. Eh? Like, we could fill it with Labatt's and like get super tanked. No, it was like, seriously, like
We've had some.
the only way that would be more Canadian is if you went out of the car to rescue the canoe that the semi was trying to destroy, and you got attacked by a beaver holding a Canadian flag, drunk on maple syrup.
It would be if the beaver came out to salvage the parts to take it to build its little dam.
No, I like the maple syrup drunk beaver with a Canadian flag. Now, smoking a joint.
Perfect. But if you don't know what to put as your final code, because you're really stuck, we have the Y34, unspecified event, undetermined intent. And you're good to go. It's like, I don't know, what the F? Just put that on there.
Literally, there should be a code that's just like DU.
WTF.
It should be DU space FUK. It's the fuck.
I'm thinking WTF. Oh.
It's crazy. And people, let's bring this back sort of serious. This stuff gets in the way of us taking care of patients. The intent, and I'm not going to judge intent, because I don't think the people that started this, I mean, I don't think Florence Nightingale started, coding because she's some like evil bitch that wanted to like destroy people's lives.
You said the B word.
I did. We have an E rating, and we are enjoying it today. So you sit there and you go, but like, so the intent starts good, and then it morphs into this thing that's just so bizarre. It becomes a data mine, and it really gets in the way of taking care of patients. And the best description I heard of this is, what if a pilot flew an airplane across the Atlantic from New York to London and landed, and then they spent an hour coding the flight. Well, the flight lasted this long, and it had this much turbulence. We're going to add a turbulence code. We're going to add the chief purser was kind of a jerk code. We're going to add a disruptive passenger code, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It makes no sense. It's completely nuts. And we need to get back to some rationality in this regard. So having said that, I think we've probably beat this one to death.
But it's been fun.
It's been fun. We'll have a little message from Aaron Weissman again.
Yeah. No, that was super fun making fun of it, because we deal with this every day, every patient. We do our best because we want to get paid right.
If you ever hear me at the end of a visit that you've totally enjoyed, and I've been unbelievably professional, screaming swear words, it's not at you. It's at the ICD-10 codes. That's just the way it goes.
And that's the end of the story.
That's the end of the story. All right, Aaron.
Before we end, don't forget to go hang out with our friend, Dr. Erin Wiseman, over at her podcast, Dr. Me First, on your favorite podcast app, or learn more about how to connect with the Queen of Sass. she beats me by heading to drpodcastnetwork.com/drmefirst. It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
But we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.